have approval of the agenda as it stands?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as it stands.
All those in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion?
Yes, I'm asking for it to be item, under unfinished business, item A, cost recovery policy, that it be deleted, that it's not appropriate at this time for this body to discuss this because the township has never even seen it until this morning. And we've been working diligently for 6 months with ordinances and discussions. I was at one on Wednesday, and this policy statement seems to be totally contrary to everything we've been working towards. I can take our attorney is here if need be, representing the township. But I think it should, at this point, it should be deleted until this can be discussed with township officials to make sure this is what the fire that you, Shannon, and Greg are assuming, because the fire board wasn't any part of any discussion to put this policy together. And we haven't seen any correspondence between the chief or yourself with the attorney for the fire board that must have generated this type of a policy statement. And I was flabbergasted last night when I read this in the packet. And I'm asking it be deleted from a good neighbor standpoint, that
Okay.
this be discussed with the township first,
Okay.
before we even have a discussion.
There have been ongoing discussions this afternoon, and I would...
With who, though? Well, I mean...
There have been ongoing discussions with our attorney this afternoon and your attorney, and I would like to take a motion to table this action to allow both parties to meet with the understanding that they will not act on the proposed IFC or cost recovery amendment this month, that we will come together and meet once again to try to bring this to a conclusion.
The only, in response to that, the only cost recovery issue, I was at a Wednesday meeting. Unfortunately, Chief Janik was not there, but he was represented, and the only sticking point on cost recovery was township approval. We seemed to be in total agreement on the items that could be cost recovered in detail. It's all been spelled out in a new, updated, amended cost recovery ordinance.
Of which we have not
The only sticking point
seen.
was whether or not the township would have a say before an invoice goes out. And I don't see the need for attorneys getting together again on this issue. The township is responsible and liable for things that go on involving our building codes and our ordinances. And I can read you letters here where I didn't realize it. I was naive when I was on this board and we were kind of cheering cost recovery. But where is it? Here. I didn't realize that when an invoice goes out, the fire department, the fire district is acting as if they're an agent and acting under our township ordinances when they bill somebody. And that's exactly what is stated to a
Okay,
township
but
resident.
if we're not going to discuss this today,
Okay.
then we're not going to discuss this
I
today.
guess I've got some real comments on that too, Roy, but I will hold them if this board does not want to
I would
discuss this,
agree if
because
we would
this is a
agree
matter
to-
of perception.
Let's agree to table it then.
Okay, with the understanding that,
I don't
that
agree.
the township doesn't take any action on this until it's been
I can't
discussed
speak
once.
for the township, I can't do that. It would be, it's planned to be, we've had so many discussions with this. The attorneys that you still want, I think, A, we have a conflict of interest with our attorney for the fire district, with him being the same person that represents the city. That's an issue we've been involved in this. And that should be cleared up before we have more discussions with attorneys.
Do you want me to respond to that now?
I'm just stating the township.
Well, if we're going to, okay, we have to decide
I'm
whether this
just
will be
saying,
tabled or if we are going to discuss.
I would like to see it tabled, but I can't make the commitment to township attorney meeting with fire district attorney. Eric, do you think that's appropriate?
I think it should be tabled. From what I heard the meeting Wednesday, I think there's common ground here for the betterment of everyone. It's just a little sticking points on who's doing what. We need to have a review board. I think that needs to be put in place on who's reviewing. And, I mean, we all want the same thing. I mean, we've been having cost recovery on this since I've been here 11 years, and we haven't had issues. But obviously, a couple things came up, and now the township is concerned, and that's fine. But let's work it out instead of them coming up with an ordinance and us coming up with an ordinance, and now neither one of them work together. We need to work in concert to better this cost recovery. So I say we table this, and if we have to put a workshop together with this board, I think this needs to be a board discussion.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And we can't have things going back and forth with lawyers with, I don't know if Kathy and Todd even know too much about what's going on here. So I think we all need to be in agreement that it's got to be open and transparent. So I think
I
we should
wouldn't mind
table it.
tabling it either, only because, I mean, I don't understand the township side of it, you're right. I understand the fire board side.
Thank you, Ted.
But I like to vote when I have all the facts, and I don't get why you're even pushing for it, frankly. So I'm not saying you don't have good reason, but I'd like to know what your reasons are.
And Kathy, I sat on a meeting Wednesday, and I came out of that meeting, and it's like, I'm almost more confused now, because they have some very valid points that they're making. But I know Greg has, and has done a fantastic
Right.
job over the years. So I don't want to second guess what he's doing and what he's done.
I agree.
But,
It's- we're on.
yeah, let's get on the same page before we got this going on.
I think it's a great idea.
Because they told me that you guys were close, and
And reading all those documents today, I was saying to Todd, you do look close. I mean, it looks like really close, so.
And I think what the biggest thing is, from what I got out of the meeting Wednesday, is the checks and balances, and who's checking and who's balancing, basically. Who's writing this and who has to approve.
Are we going to discuss this tonight?
I say we
or are
table it. That's my opinion.
If we table this, because I only know what we've received in email and packets, I'd really like to hear what the leader of the organization has to say when, under chief's comments, if that's appropriate about it in general.
We can do that, if you agree to that.
Our attorney is here also in the public comment. He could present what he feels is, knows is the township's position on this.
And that would help.
During public.
He's here tonight.
So we are going to discuss it.
I don't think we should
Discuss or
discuss it at
comment?
all until we go through, you know, maybe table it, everybody get together,
So you want a workshop?
do a workshop, we're going to do a workshop.
We could, as long as what, we have 3 at a time, we can have. invite-
Oh, we can have a workshop.
No,
and
we
then
can
just-
do a workshop.
And just, you have to post it 48 hours and to the public. And we used to do workshops once a month, didn't we, Scott?
I just want, you know, make sure the township's not going to jump the gun with their next meeting and pass something that
Well, it
hasn't
should
been
happen
agreed on.
before.
Yeah, we should have a meeting before, we should meet with the
We'd
township.
have to have a meeting before next Monday.
Or the township tell us we're going to hold off until,
No. We're meeting on.
Your public hearing is next Monday.
for the planning commission.
The planning commission, but that does not involve this cost recovery
No.
issue. That's roads, et cetera.
It's the fire
We are in total agreement, I'm told. That's two different, it's another issue.
Mhm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, chief. The ordinance, Wednesday, everything seemed to be in agreement on length of roads, turnarounds, et
No, I'm
cetera.
sorry that we're not.
Boy,
Fire flow was omitted. Water for fire protection was omitted, and they had the building official that was in there, and permits were omitted.
Why don't we go?
So are we in tabling mode with this and then have a workshop to plan and organize?
Yeah, the public hearing Monday is on the access roads, so one of the public hearings on the access roads, so.
That's a planning commission meeting, not a township board meeting. That's
So conceivably, it
The
could
next
be,
township board meeting is the first Wednesday of August.
We could have a workshop before that.
I don't know how there was some sort of statement made that I was in agreement.
There wasn't, correct, no, I came away from that meeting, Eric was
Yeah.
there, that we had a couple of little changes in wording, things that had been omitted.
Yeah.
No, there
A
wasn't.
lot of
even-
changes in wording, but yeah.
There were 5
There's a new
omissions.
draft out correcting those. I've got it with me tonight.
We have yet to see that yet.
There were 5 omissions in the ordinance and 5 omissions in the driveway plan that we.
Okay, but first we have to decide whether we're gonna discuss this or not discuss it. Because we're discussing.
We already discussed it. Let's
So,
table it. Can I make a motion to table unfinished business, line 7, letter A? Do we make a
Yeah, you
motion
can
to
make a
table?
motion.
I think there was already a motion on the table technically. So
Okay,
so you
now-
can close or amend that motion maybe potentially.
Well, was that to delete it or to table it?
That was just to approve the agenda as is, was the first one that Scott started with and Kathy seconded.
So that
So then I think that just, maybe Scott can just amend his motion would be the right way to do this? I'm just asking a question. Or does that motion need to be finished and either voted on one way or the other before the second one can be made? Since there's a motion on the table already.
I can rescind my motion.
Right.
Okay,
However you wanna do it.
I'll do it that way.
so now Eric's making a motion.
To table.
Okay.
Cost recovery policy.
All right. Table it with a workshop,
Yes,
okay?
to be determined
All right.
per schedules.
All right, is there any more discussion?
That's enough discussion.
All right, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Motion carries. Any objections? Motion carries.
You seconded it, Scott?
Pardon me?
Did you second the new motion?
Who seconded the new motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to type all the words.
All right. Now, could we have approval of the minutes of June 19th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes dated June 19th, 2017.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Public comment on agenda items only. Public comment?
I would like to comment, so I guess the agenda's technically been amended. I'm Nick Curcio, the Township Attorney. Still like to hear that
Come
comment.
closer so it should go easier to hear.
I would be addressing the item that was removed from the agenda.
I don't think you can discuss that.
Okay.
Oh, it's,
Not on the
It's
agenda
been,
anymore,
it's off the agenda, so we cannot discuss it at this time. I mean,
That's true.
does anybody have a problem with that? Because it's not on the agenda.
no.
Fire chief's comment.
Oh, wait, hold on, sorry.
Oh,
I had a-
sorry.
okay,
I didn't know
Lions,
if
go
there's
ahead.
anybody else. Linus Siren, Captain, Saugatuck Fire. A Couple things I wanted to voice. First, understand you have election of officers in this meeting. That is an agenda item, right? I would highly recommend and support that you keep Jane as board chair. She is truly a firefighter, first responders friend on this board. The board has worked very well over the years, and And she has definitely kept that going and for the betterment of the department and all the firefighters and the equipment we have to work with. So I would hope that she would be nominated and voted on to keep the continuity that the board has going already. And is there, there's an agenda item on the International Fire Code, right? No?
No.
Okay. I will end it at there. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Chris Mandel, Saugatuck Township, I would like to echo Linus's statements and just to add to that, that if the board does choose to pick other officers in their election, which is obviously your guys' right to do so, just recognize how much behind the scene time that some of those positions do put in outside of this one meeting a month, that there's several hours signing checks and being available for emergency checks for truck repairs and things like that, that Jane has given so selflessly of in the past several years. So just please consider that in your election of officers. Thank you.
Michael England. I'd like to echo what Linus and Chris have just said. I support Jane 100%, and I support the chief 100%.
Anybody else?
Elliot Stark, firefighter, Saugatuck Township. I go along with supporting Jane for the continuing position. I can't think of anyone who's done a better job for us, who supported us more completely. She's been on fire scenes with us. You're not going to see a lot of people doing that. That night we had that fire on 129th, it was the dead of winter. Jane was out there with us. I don't think you're going to see that from anybody else. So she has my support.
Elliot, is there anybody else?
Up here. Mike Betts, Captain of Saugatuck Fire. I'd like to extend the same as everybody else. You can't say enough about Jane and what she's done in the time that I've been here, and I'd like to see that continue. Thank you.
Under item 8B, on the roads, is that anything I can comment on that or not?
On the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
On that part, pardon?
Sorry, I missed that when you asked the question.
I wanted to look on the agenda real quick. Under that part, obviously, this has been a real tough issue. I mean, I've been on here a long time, and we've made progress all the time. And all this progress, and especially once the International Fire Code went in, as far as road widths and stuff like that. And I feel that we're at the point right now that it just seems wrong to have two different sets of rules. I mean, it is tough because we have 3 municipalities that make up the fire district. We have, different codes for different municipalities, and especially when one of them is going against the International Fire Code. Personally, I feel for the safety of all the firefighters, the residents of the area, that it's about time that the board dig their heels in and, this is the way it's got to be. I mean, to have 2 sets of rules, and to me, it just does not make sense. When you have the International Fire Code, it's a recognized fire code. The township adopted the fire code, and I guess if they don't want to do the International Fire Code, then maybe they ought to just do away with the whole thing. But it just seems like it's going to be at the cost of the residents of the township and the cost of firefighters and first responders of this department and our neighboring departments. And personally, I think it's time that by whatever means, either intense communication or if it has to go to the media to get it out there. But personally, I feel it's time to make a stand on this.
Amendments is to shift some of the requirements that are already in the International Fire Code away from that code and into the zoning ordinance of the township, with the thought being that it's just easier for people building homes in the township to come to one place for approval and also will give the zoning administrator a little bit of discretion to work with fire personnel on a case-by-case basis when issues come up, in particular with respect to driveways. The amendments would do a number of things. One is to apply it was I think originally proposed 16-foot of surface area. That's the township and zoning administrator is now recommending 20 to any private roads in the township of surface width, still within a fairly wide easement. I think usually 66 feet would be the requirement as totally proposed. I mean, as currently proposed. And then driveways, the requirements would kick in for any driveway more than 200 feet long, rather than having the IFC's turnaround requirements, which can be cumbersome for property owners. It would instead provide for a turnaround area, whether paved or unpaved, in hopes that apparatus could use that to turn around if need be. And also on longer driveways provides turn lanes as currently provided by the IFC. Township board certainly welcomes any comments by this board or fire personnel on those amendments and any of the amendments relating to these fire issues. And that, sure.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess, I've been going back and forth on this whole fire code rule and regulation thing now for way too long. And the people of the fire district, I don't work for the township only. The people of the fire district deserve the best service possible. And I still stand by the premise that to reduce minimum requirements is not in the best interest of the people we serve. You have your opinion, and I have mine. And the foundation of that is experience in the International Fire Code and the experience in fighting fires. And we have some great builders in this area, just phenomenal. But when you consider the size of the homes, the heat release rates, the fuel loads, and the long driveways, you don't reduce the requirements. That's my opinion. And I want it to be shown on the record. But the demands of the township are to make it, to streamline the process, to make it easier for the builders. I love the builders. Let them stick to the four walls within. They aren't there at 2 o'clock in the morning. They aren't there when the 4-year-old stops breathing. This is public safety for the betterment of Douglas, Saugatuck Township, and Saugatuck City. I respect the builder's opinion. I respect Nick's opinion. Okay? We're experienced. We're plan reviewers. We're certified fire inspectors. We're firefighters. Wouldn't that be better handled by us? But no, not in the township. They're the only ones asking to change this. Matter of fact, Douglas even adopted the International Fire Code 2015. Only the township. Think about that. I serve the citizens, and I'm going to continue doing it despite this demand to regulate the fire department. Zoning administrators administer this stuff in areas where there's no fire departments. Steve Cushion is a great guy, has his expertise in zoning. But not township. They want to give him that control and regulation because all he needs is a ruler. I hear that one more time, I don't know what I'm going to do. Jump out the window? All I need is a ruler. And you know what? What I'm about? You. All of you. And the citizens. I am not about the township administration. A few of them are making these decisions. And I don't care. And I want it to be known. I'm tired of getting bullied and pushed around. I made my changes on the fire code. And I keep getting pushed more and more. Every time I get a revision, it's changed. And I'm not going to argue with anybody about this, and not this board. If you don't want me for fire chief and make these decisions, then you replace me. But enough is enough. This is the people. Look at their faces. These are the ones I'm fighting for. And you remove me if you don't want me to do this. But it's the citizens. but enough is enough. I wouldn't want to handle anything for zoning. Steve Cushion is better gifted at that than me, than I ever will be. Not the township. So I ask you, what do you want? You want township running this fire department? Because that's what they seem to think they want to do. Or do you want Greg Janik and the fire officers running the fire department? It's up to you guys. But I've had enough of this, and I want it known. I'm tired of being bullied on this. Every time it's pushing, pushing, pushing.
I think we need to move on. Fire chief.
Okay, moving on to the incidents. I call your attention to the two screens. You can see we're down in calls for the month. We're up from 2015 from 2016. Finished June with 89 calls. I think there's two reasons for this. Number one, motor vehicle incidents are down in the weather. Those factors certainly influence what we have here. Weather with MVIs are correlated. Okay, next. Year-to-date comparison on bar graphs, down about 5%. Pretty true on the infers. You can see 300 series line item. More of an accurate portrayal. We used to be 70%. We're about 57% on medical calls, mainly because the breakdowns are more accurate. MBIs, of course, this is just 30 incidents year to date, 2 extrications, almost about 7% of the total volume of the calls so far. I think it was Todd who recommended that and was a good addition to the data entry. Bar graph on MBIs shows your strong months. You can look at 2016, that blue in July, 7. That is because of the construction. We don't have that this year. So the data reflects that. Special events are really ramping up this year. I think we have 3 events going on Wednesday. Pretty tough to staff, let me tell you. June there were 5 of them. So you can see, July, I think it's going to really spike up. We've got Venetian coming on. And by geographic areas, Saugatuck North, Saugatuck South, Douglas, Douglas is a strong call volume this month, 93 calls. Actually, year to date. Grace of Douglas is what we like to see. That's a downward trend. Overlapping calls, incredible. This weekend, I think I ran with Jeff's crew, 4 overlapping calls, starting at 5:30 in the morning Saturday. Unbelievable. Interesting enough, I sent this data to 5 fire chiefs. One already responded. It's in about 2 o'clock. And Captain Tinney in Holland likes us so much he's incorporating it into his department, and he is experiencing the same thing, overlapping calls. And that's an interesting staffing and resource challenge. Property protected values, pretty self-explanatory. And this just shows where those incidents occurred. Personnel response to incidents as of January 1st. It looks like, go back on that.
Sorry.
Yeah, probably Johnny, John Miles, of course. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Waiting.
Response times holding pretty accurate, 5.75 year to date, a little over 5. Darn good. Fireboat incidents, activity kind of went up there for a while. comes and goes.
Had a little training last week.
Yeah. I was in Petoskey, but that was a scheduled training, yeah. They did a kayak retrieval the other day. Alvin County asked us to do it, you know,
Good.
working together. Chris and Brent did it.
Keep those boats moving.
Yeah. Okay, done on that. Inspection reviews. Scroll down that shit, Chris, please.
Sorry.
And it just shows inspection activity. Chris has been on a lot of other issues, so to speak, besides inspections. Community risk reduction. Chris will be teaching another class the 25th.
Michael McClear is teaching this one.
Oh, Michael Migler, I'm sorry. One of our firefighters is a CPR instructor. He'll be teaching that the 25th. I wanted to call your attention to the great coverage that we mentioned, the Holland Sentinel in here, and an article on address signs. Both the papers do a great job for us, and we're grateful. I mean, here's another one from Holland Sentinel. Saugatuck to host a CPR class. Scott, you always do a great job with our public announcements. We're grateful for that. Another one from Holland Sentinel. They interviewed John on the effects of chargers near your bed or in a bed as far as them igniting. Local Observer printed the colored versions of our incidents in the paper. I mean, that had to cost a fortune. So we appreciate all that, all three papers, what you do for us.
Who's running the Facebook page?
Chris?
More or less me and then Michael McClear.
No, I
does
just
some
want
of
to give you a compliment.
Thanks.
Nice.
Well, I think
Keep up the good work.
to comment on the CPR classes too, actually, the 25th class is completely full already, and we're pushing people off until the September class because of the amount of people that wanted to do it from all the local ads, so that's awesome. So,
Next up on the agenda, I want to mention we have a burn pod trailer that those of you that have attended our open house, there's a side-by-side demonstration of sprinkled, unsprinkled, fuel loads and how quickly. It's all timed, all photographed. Aaron, our in-house photographer, has documented these burns. And Chris and Brent and others had an idea of building this trailer along with me, but Chris took it a step further, and we're going to put a steel container on that, split it up and build one. We hope to have it done in October. This is a regional project with two other fire departments to merge on that, keep the cost down. What's significant is Genesis, who's in Holland, donated the trailer. Then Chris, I wouldn't go. Chris and Chieftain Blacker went over and asked them for another axle. We need a third axle, about $1,000. Here you go, all free.
springs, shackles, a new hitch, I mean, chains, he just handed me every single part we
So,
needed to.
We're thinking it's about a $7,000 trailer. That's in the capital plan as far as building that. We hope to have it done by October, but who knows? That's our goal.
Do we send something like that, an official thank you letter from the board?
He actually asked us to draft one, and Chris did it when I was Petoskey, and I believe the comment, it was too nice.
Yeah, I did it from, because it was a joint project, I did it from all three fire chiefs instead. And got Sarah Boucher from Fenville and Doug Blaker to sign off on it. And he said that I was just looking for give me a 5 stars on Google reviews, and that's all I needed. But he said you really touched my heartstrings with your letter. So
Not Chris, he's got to go over the top.
this is what Chief's talking about on the screen finally. So that's the trailer he donated, and we're just gonna the wood pod didn't travel well, so we're gonna do it with a steel shipping container instead.
This is part of the community risk reduction to show people, you can talk all you want about sprinklers. Until you demo it, you're amazed at the speed at which things ignite, just from a waste paper basket. This is a tool, and Genesis gave us that tool, and the board gave us the rest of the tools to make this work. So, okay, and it is this. We sold our heavy rescue truck. Then we started getting double-digit increases in MVIs. So we have all these motor vehicle incidents, we have no heavy rescue truck. So our neighbors to the north Grass Cup Fire are building a new engine. They were gonna retire their one box truck. My suggestion was to chief was, why don't we turn it into a heavy rescue truck? Why have all these departments by cribbing, locking? Why have 4 sets of airbags? Why have 3 sets of struts at $20,000 a strut? You know what I'm talking about, Todd? So why not merge facilities? So we approached Grass Cup, and of course, Al Meshkin was all over it. Great idea. Now we have, and we didn't intend to do it, we have Hamilton in favor of it. And we also are looking into buy-in from Overijssel. What does it mean? It means it's going to be a fractional expense for this department versus getting another truck. We don't want another truck. And that would be housed, care and custody would be in Grass Cup. So it's a collaborative resource project. The truck number is 760, and we hope to have 2 to 4 fire departments part of this. Make sense?
Can you get pictures of that?
We can't.
Of their truck?
Yeah.
I can show it to you in a minute, yeah.
Oh,
Curious, what kind of financing are we talking about then?
good, real good question. So the guys did a wish list, and I think we were about $12,000 between Grass Cup and $12,000 from Saugatuck. And what we thought we'd do, what we could afford and what we couldn't afford, you know, we do what we could this year, and then we would budget for it the next year type of thing. It would come out of the maintenance fund. But, you know, we have to do minor graphics, we have to change the lights. But we have so much equipment, we didn't want to be replicating all our resources. Whereas a heavy rescue truck is $450 to $550, as in $550,000. And we sold a great one, but we didn't know back then what we know now.
There you go, here.
Okay.
So right there.
So it's basically an old beer truck, or the body of an old beer truck essentially, but it works because it's
They'll
got
drink
20
beer with
storage.
Grass Cup.
So,
Yeah.
It's a Caterpillar
Not in
diesel,
public.
and they maintain it, there's annuals done on it. There's some pitting in the back of the truck, we have to have that tended to. And I think it's gonna be a tremendous asset for the community.
What do you think the, 2 things, concept of operation, is this an initial aid vehicle to any PI or any obvious request that like you and command need? And it'd be cool to know like what's on it, like once it's all said and done, like what's this heavy rescue have, like what's its capability?
Grain rescue,
Yeah.
virtually everything we can conceive of, because it'll be fully equipped with extrication and cribbing. So jacks, for example, we had a rollover on Ganges, you may have saw it, that's where we brought in a helicopter. We were asked to mutual aid with Ganges. They had, I think, only 4 people show up initially, and we had the premium crew over here bring out the jacks, and that truck, that car was on its side. You couldn't get anybody out there, 3 people trapped inside. We don't have struts. So Ganges had the struts, we had the manpower and the know-how, and we stabilized that vehicle, cut the roof off. Mike and crew extricated the 3 patients. So tremendous, and that's what it's like working together. I mean, the resources there was a 4-hour call. That's what it's about, traffic control. We have to be smart. And that's what we want to do, be smart. We're not going to do things the way we did them 20 years ago. This truck will help us. It'll be deployed on any motor vehicle incident. If Overijssel merges into this collaborative resource, it'll go out there too. It'll be located, and because Grass Cup has room, we do not.
One thing to take into consideration, since this will be in the 5th District Homeland Security region, there may also be state Homeland Security funds to get something that we don't even have anywhere from the state
You're right.
line up to the
Like a
alley.
micro grant, 25,000 or less.
Exactly.
When you do regional grants, the FEMA comes out of the woodwork with, oh, we like this, because obviously it benefits a great deal of people. So you're right, we're trying to figure out what would be worthy of writing to that content. We've got the generator, we've got extrication, so somewhere around 25,000, we're trying to figure out what we can do. And we haven't come up with anything yet.
Just as I see the roof of that, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I think they're called the light scans, the telescoping super lights.
Next
Oh, yeah.
thing.
Use those.
Don't give them any ideas.
They're 15 grand is why it's not on the list, but yes.
Good point,
I'm
though.
just thinking mass casualty,
Yeah.
that would be a Homeland Security purchase.
That truck already has pole lighting on the front and the
Yeah,
rear,
you can
powered
see
up
that.
the jet
That's
set.
coming off.
It's just all
Yeah,
quartz,
not
it's all
solar.
going,
Right.
all be
They
LED.
won't have
That's what-
lighting on these.
Oh, two big expenses are the door refurbishing where it's rusting and the lights. It's an aluminum box, right, Wayne?
Yeah.
Aluminum box. But all good ideas, and we're gonna be looking at that grant opportunities. So I wanted to share that with you, okay?
That's awesome.
Grant updates, we had another RAP grant submitted for our second phase of the project, and that's in the back building for closed circuit TV and card access. And it comes with a price tag, but we believe that we should have card access and closed TV surveillance back in that building. So that was submitted. I know Hank Savislak taught me a great thing, you know, any deaths or injuries. We did have an injury, Mike Betts was actually on that call in Ganges. He hurt his back pulling those people out, and I'm glad you're doing better now, Mike. Donations. We received a 28-foot enclosed trailer from Escape Incorporated, a fire prevention company. There's the trailer. That photo was taken in the back of our lot. No strings attached, and one of the things I'm thinking about doing with that is a rehab trailer that would be heated and cooled to get people out of the elements. So we haven't had time to, we got it last week, we haven't had time to sort out what we're going to do with it.
Air conditioning unit work
Yeah.
on it?
Yep, all of it works. It was stored inside for the last
Oh.
8 years. They haven't used it. They bought a bigger one. And he had this inside his barn and wanted to make room for something else. And you don't really say no to a free $8,000 trailer. So,
You guys learned that from John Block. You get everything you can get.
And we're very cognizant, one thing I learned from a lot of the great people around here is nothing's free. So-
I wanted to mention, there is, you know, maintenance, repair.
You're absolutely
Yeah.
We
right.
are taking on
Oh, yeah.
expense here.
You're absolutely right. And that's one of the reasons I thought of maybe doing that as a west side joint venture where I have Ganges and the other fire departments be part of that ownership. But Roy, you're right. You're right. To be honest, the trailer you use now is my family's trailer. You've been using it for 3 years.
so that was the intention.
We'd like
to
it
replace
back.
the one we're borrowing for one we own.
My brothers graciously loaned you the trailer, so we don't have one. Next up, I was approached right after last month's, 2 months ago, because I wasn't here, board meeting. Mike Betts asked if he could donate the climbing wall
Mike-
tower.
Mike
Right,
Johnson.
Joe.
I'm sorry.
We're coming to Mike's house for.
Mike Johnson, owner of Coral Gables, sorry, wants to donate the climbing wall tower to the fire district. I guess as a funding mechanism. As much as I appreciate that, I would caution the board with that. I would be concerned about us trying to control something that is an amusement. Number one, we don't have the time for that and to use it once a year. I'd be worried about the L word and liability word. And I don't get too worked up about liability. I'd caution you on this, but it's your decision.
What would you want to do? Move it right off his property over to here? or
Yeah, I think it's a trailer, you bring it down, we would store it, we have nowhere to store it inside.
For our once a year family?
or whatever.
Wow.
The self-belay units in that thing are like $2,000 a piece, and I don't know if those are the original ones. I mean, it's just, there's a ton of money that may need to be spent on it.
Yeah.
Seems like they'd be better off to give to the schools.
It might be a better recipient than us. My suggestion is you allow me to write him a thank you
Respectfully
letter.
decline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's probably not best for the citizens we take that on.
I
Is
think
that
it's a-
okay?
That's
Yeah,
a good idea.
that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I know,
Right.
yeah, maybe, I never thought about that.
Okay, moving on, request for payments, accounts payable. Dee?
I'll make a motion. Pay the accounts payable. The tune of
We had a lot of insurance bills.
$123,050.41.
I'll support.
Is there any discussion?
I think Peter just hit the nail on the head. A lot of insurance.
Insurance, it's always a biggie.
I had a couple as usual. I didn't understand, I know we have workers' comp, but it says prepaid expense, and I wonder, do we put aside money in case of a claim?
No, what happens is the insurance company, our fiscal year doesn't start until July 1st, but they want their workers' comp people think we're not gonna pay them, and they took the money, they want the money before July 1st, so on the book, it's just an accounting step, so.
So it's ahead.
And that's, yeah, it's ahead by 2 days or whatever, so. And they took it out twice.
But even if there's no claim, that's my question. You
Even there's
still
no
have to
claim, it's
pay.
just like car insurance, you're paying for it.
Okay, so.
It's about 20 grand a year, you see that's, it's out of there twice, it's
Yeah, I
over
saw
20
that.
grand a year for firefighters, workers' comp is up
Okay.
there. And then on top of it, there's not many people that even write it in the state of Michigan for firefighters.
Oh, okay.
I think
So
there's
a lot
accident
of
fund and
competition.
travelers, and there's not many other.
Okay. And the next thing was the radios. I assume that's for the new 9/11 project or whatever, but I thought those were given to us free. So why are they 13?
They are, because we had gone to the board and asked to upgrade those radios to fire service radios, which included intrinsically safe, waterproof, and remote speaker mics. So that was part of the package to upgrade the radios.
Oh, okay. So we're getting better than what they were.
We are. They would fund so much, we had to go to fire service grade,
Okay.
because police didn't need that.
I think we approved that. right?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just
That's
lost
archery
it.
for
Vaguely, I said something, I know, but, okay. And then there were a lot of the fireboat charges, and I get that, but I just wondered, is that for paying for it or for maintaining it? One of
That's
them was
another good
6,100.
question. What we had was, we had to put an engine enclosure over that, which was part of the original project. Unfortunately, Anderson Boat Works postponed it almost 2 years. So that was part of the original engine enclosure. We have to suppress that engine. To suppress that whole room was about $6,500. So we wanted to build an engine enclosure for sound, for safety, and a smaller suppression unit. Follow me so far?
Yeah, I do.
The other problem that happened was, the boats in 1976, hoses were never changed. We changed all the hoses on the engines, but we didn't change the exhaust hoses. When we launched, we developed a leak capable of flooding the boat. Just the parts were $4,500. Just the 3 hoses. That's what occurred.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of paying the bills, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Pay the bills. Hey, Peter, you need a final.
Okay, this, okay. The one for June 30th, which is last year's fiscal year, overall, I think we've collected all the revenue we're gonna collect. We've collected 99.87% of what we projected. And then on the expenses, we were 1.17% over budget, which is basically shook up in a bag, is about $12,000 over budget. If you go on the expenses, the far right column, the ones in parentheses are the ones that are over, fire calls, payroll, which we have no control over. And then there were some, basically the fireboat upgrades that came in, and then some education there. But
I guess, being over, and we're over budget, but it was 1% over budget. I mean, so I believe I have, the only bill that I don't have is the June fuel bill from Dunefield. So I don't know if anybody has any particular questions. And the other packet is just this current month, and majority of the bills that were paid were just all the insurance that they want basically up front.
Okay, is there any questions? Okay, moving on. I guess we'll go to B, legal advertising rates.
So in your packet, you know, Chris, you were here when this occurred. I'm going to let you go to that. I'll defer to you.
I guess my understanding was Roy brought up a concern as to some of the articles in the local observer, and then the discussion kind of ended up at the expense of each one of these and how much we paid for advertising. So I tried to put together a summary, which I can't find now, of maybe it was before. Oh, here it is. I got it. Okay. So I tried to put together a summary of what each paper cost us. I reached out to Bill McElwain from the Commercial Record, Mike Gallagher from the Local Observer, and then the Holland Sentinel. So you can see basically what the comparable ads cost us, or for what is roughly published in the last year, is what, and then at the bottom are what the annual cost per vendor would approximately be. Mike Gallagher, or Bill said those rates are actually cut in half from the standard rates from what the Local Observer normally does. Mike, I can't remember who your owner's name is, Scott, but
Mike Wilcox.
Wilcox, that's one, yeah. He gave Bill the permission to cut the rates in half, so those, the $247.20 and et cetera, are actually half of what the public would normally pay. The Local Observer, Mike Gallagher, stated that he would continue to do all those for free, and he has and supports the fire department, so the only one he intends to charge us for is the annual public hearing notice that originally brought up this question. And I think that was actually only $100 in Peter's financial report, so I was off by a little bit on that one. And then the Holland Sentinel obviously is clearly very or not overpriced, but I mean they're far more, far higher, and I don't think, as we discussed at the last meeting, that their readership is even through our district a whole lot. So I guess that's, the rest is up to you to discuss, unless you have questions with me.
Any discussion on this? I think, Chris, thank you for getting those facts and figures, and those are the facts and figures. They speak for themselves. So, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I brought it up, and I agree. I can't argue with the numbers if you're looking at cost. And we have to look at cost. And if Mike Gallagher is willing to give away over $2,000 worth of advertising, God bless them, I guess, except I got a morality problem, frankly. I mean, I hate to put it in those terms, but when you read some of the things that have been in that paper, the lies, the innuendo, attacking people with innuendo, it's wrong. And I would encourage any merchant in town not to advertise with it. I don't care how cheap it is. You get what you pay for. But I can't argue that if we can get at half rate $1,900 worth of advertising in there at no cost, God bless his business plan, because I don't know where he makes any money. I felt I had an obligation to tell this board of my feelings towards that paper, since I was personally attacking my son. And it was lies and innuendo. And the fire board, by the way, and the fire department has never publicly said why my son was terminated from this fire department, to refute what was put in the paper. And I have a problem with that. I asked Greg, I asked you to do that, and it didn't happen. If I would just like somebody tonight to say why John now works for this fire department. That's all I'm asking. It was a change in job responsibilities. It was an opportunity, as I was told, to upgrade the position to somebody who had certified firefighting. And it made tons of sense than to have a full-time clerk.
Well, Roy, may I comment? I'm real sorry any of that happened. I am very sorry. I meant no personal attack on anybody, especially Bill. And my suggestion, when that occurred to me, on some things in the paper, I went right to the source. And I suggested that to you, and I completely respect your view. The position was restructured. That was the main body of the change of the position. Yeah, we had some issues.
Can I speak up though? I think personnel issues
No.
with the fire department should be kept confidential
Right.
by this board and by you.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And I don't think paper needs to know anything. I think we made a change, a good change. John's a good guy, whatever, but other than that, I don't think anything has to
And
be said.
I would second it, Greg, that I applauded the change at the time, because it made
You did.
fiscal sense, and I put on the record. But when something like that comes out later, and it had to, somewhere, there was a German, something happened to get information like that to that paper. Okay, Fred, thank you for saying that tonight.
Well, I just worried that whatever I say in the paper is going to become worse some way, because I can't control the
Which is why I didn't write a
paper.
letter to
Right,
the editor.
I can't, you know,
I stayed out of it.
right.
And that's why our
It doesn't
personnel
get
issues
you
should
Yes.
stay.
I certainly
Our
respect
issues.
Eric's view, and
And you're right, Eric, personnel issues are personnel issues. There's,
So, it should be
Private?
under lock and key.
It's forbidden.
yeah,
Thank you.
it's not someplace to go. Okay, moving on.
You going to have
Uh,
a vote on use of the paper, or a motion? or-
I don't know what we would vote on.
I think we leave it up to the leadership of this fire department to decide how they advertise.
I agree.
That's fine by me.
Okay, moving on, once again. 196 quarter camera install request to MDOT, right?
Todd, I made only one call on this. MDOT is difficult. I am still trying to come to terms with traffic control devices for the non-motorized trail. I can only handle so many major things. I was denied traffic control devices out here. We have on a recording bicycles driving in between 17 trucks going to a parade July 4th. And then telling me it's not in use. As they're standing there, bicycles go by. So this is something I promise you I'll work on when I can. I got to find the right person to talk to. The first person I called said, oh, that's not our department. So I have to go to Grand Rapids, call Grand Rapids on it.
It's just a thought.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, this is a really difficult issue because
Yeah.
the drivers in those fire trucks cannot see those bicycles. But the bicycles have the right of way. Somebody is going to get hurt. And we're having a lot of trouble making MDOT pay attention to this. We received a letter that said, if anybody gets hurt, it's your fault.
Well, I'm confused here. We're talking about 196.
Yeah,
well,
we're talking-
And
All
not
right, it's-
outside here,
Yes,
right?
you're right.
I think we should talk about that. I agree. It should be something that we should
All right.
talk on fire board.
I brought it together because it's not easy getting through MDOT. I've been working 3 months on traffic control measures. It was brought to MDOT's attention in the preliminary design meetings. We need traffic safety measures. So that's why I said this is a tough proposition that I'll work on.
Moving on. Fire prevention open house date is October 1st.
And I think you can show if a driver was right or if he was wrong. And these are better quality and not $127 dash cam that loses its memory in 24 hours. So it does qualify for a partial grant, and the capital justification form or funding approval form pretty much describes what it is.
had a lot of issues with not having the dash camera? Do you get people disputing a lot of things? And just,
You know,
it's nice to have like the police have them. but I
right,
just
we
wondered.
haven't, but I believe it's something like, one of the things the board agreed to was reverse cameras. So that project is being implemented right now, reverse cameras, backup cameras. We really feel that dash cams can solve some issues where that person pulled out in front, he said, she said,
Right.
and we just think it's the best thing. I know we have safe drivers, and this can document that and prove that. And because of our call volume for Allegheny County, it's pretty substantial, I think the need is there.
To be fiscally responsible, do we need 14 of them? Could we live with less and see how they go? I'm just throwing
We
it out
could
there.
we could certainly do it in a phased
Yeah,
project.
phased project.
We
might
could
be-
certainly consider doing that.
Well, the grants be there to do it, the phase.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
I
does
don't
a
think
grant
because
then-
the grant was, that extra verbiage is exactly quoted from the grant when I put in here. So they are, the insurance company is giving us money for 14 trucks worth
Okay.
under that understanding. So yes, you could, but the brush truck that we skipped could potentially get in an accident just the same as the big engine could. So there is, you know, which truck do you leave out of the game, I guess would be my concern. And
That was originally, at which truck do we censor, which not do it, so.
And if you don't have all 14, you lose the grant money, which
Correct.
is close to $6,000.
Right.
So,
What kind of a lifespan do we look at for this?
We usually figure electronics are 5, max 7 years.
And these, there's actually, they're, the newer version of these are, that's why they are more expensive, there's no hard drive in them. So all it is actually an SD card, so there's really, I think it's actually a 5-year warranty on all their equipment. And then after that is, obviously, it's electronic, but I see nothing to fail really unless somebody smashes a camera or something like that, which would be next to impossible, so. Really, there shouldn't, I mean, I would guesstimate 10 years probably at least, versus the normal 5 is. most
and the
likely.
funding source, you have capital plan?
Yeah, it was in the capital
Cap
plan
plan.
for this year, actually, the full 17,000, I believe, or close to that.
Chris, did the MMRMA suggest this company? Have they used them before?
No.
For the fire service?
Chief Janik actually ran into them at FDIC 2 years ago, I think it was now, that we originally started talking with them. A comparable vendor was almost $5 grand for the similar option. And these people are actually based in Byron Center, and I checked 2 other companies that they've installed for, and they were very happy with the service. In both before and after the install, the actual install service went well. So I guess I figured by checking references of the
Actually,
departments and stuff.
reached out to Chief Vadasi, I think it is, in Portage,
Yeah.
and they had systems in theirs, and they gave us a thorough review of the installation, and
Yep.
theirs were, I think, 5,000 a vehicle.
Is this
They're
a
tied into
repair?
their computers.
They use this style of vision or a different type?
Different type. Theirs is,
I think the prices have come down since they did their project, but he's the one who really convinced us it was really a great tool.
and then even if you get the, you can actually, law enforcement can actually use our camera then if you get somebody that refuses to pull over, or, I mean, not that they would, but if you do have any incidences of those. And the advantage to these two is you can actually turn the camera and hit a button so it auto zooms when you pull up on a fire scene. So you can actually videotape the entire fire scene too for potential injuries. And it all depends on how the truck is facing and where the camera can take a picture of, but it's multi-use, not just on the road per se. So it'll, you know, I think it's like 4 days of recording before it starts writing over itself. So you have to have a really, really long fire scene in order to actually use up that entire memory card.
That all goes out of memory card.
Correct. Yep, those are all, it's just a little SD card, and then you pull it out, stick it in your computer, and dump the video if you need to save something. So,
So what to do is start recording the minute the truck starts? or-
yes, yep. And then there's different trigger points that you can program, like when you start the lights and sirens, it'll mark an event in the tape that you turn on the lights and sirens. If there's an actual manual button for the driver to push, somebody cut them off, he can hit it, and it'll mark that event as a sentinel event or whatever for you to go back and find when you replay the 7 hours of videotape.
Chris doesn't record sound.
Yes, they do record sound as an option.
Greg, did everyone already say that would reduce, future years liability on the auto insurance?
They did not. I think they already give you a pretty healthy refund at the end of it, 8 to 12,000 a year, and you won't find a better insurance company. There was no mention of any discount. It could also be incriminating. That's fine
Well,
with me.
I think I'll make a motion to approve the funding for the dash cams.
Is there a second?
Go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Beckman and support by Meridian to purchase dash cams in the amount of $17,402. Probably should make this a roll call vote.
Could we mention in that motion that it's $11,602 out of capital budget, balance from RMA? Specify.
Yeah. Utilizing $5,800 from the grant.
Who seconded it? Is there-
I did, that's fine, I like that better.
All right.
Otherwise, it looks like we spent more.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Just to clarify, though, we actually have to spend the full 17,000 and then we can get reimbursed. Okay.
Yeah, get it back.
Perfect. McElwain,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Stripling,
Yes.
Phelps,
Yes.
Meridian,
Yes?
Christensen.
Yes.
Perfect.
LED, excuse me, sign application.
We just,
Oh, you just skipped
talked,
over
yeah,
Item A would be,
B, Township Planning.
Oh, I'm
Commission.
sorry.
yeah.
Township Planning Commission.
That's the public hearing, where there's 2 public hearings that were advertised, one for the fire code and roads and one for the LED sign. As you know, the township had to, for whatever reasons, had to change their sign ordinance. So we had to submit an application and review for the zoning board of appeals for an LED sign for public safety. Steve Cushion really seemed to be in favor of amending that in the interest of public safety, having an LED sign. But the township historically doesn't like science spectators. And they wanted to control that, with the exception of the fire department or another public safety agency or governmental agency. So zoning board of appeals apparently didn't see that they could make that change, so it shoved over to the planning commission. It's for an ordinance revision. The ordinance would be revised to make an exception for public safety agencies.
Yeah, because we talked about getting an LED sign
Right,
at some
yes.
point.
At some point.
And
So
fire
that's-
code and roads, is that all to be done? Is there anything
Yeah,
else?
I mean, that, you know, we haven't seen any revision yet, and I don't want to hash things out here. We haven't seen a revision yet. I don't know how that's all going to work out, because there's nothing to review yet, but that's not up to me. I know, we'll be at the planning commission meeting and see how it goes.
Okay, moving on, election of fire board officers.
I'm sorry, but I did want to make one comment
Oh, I'm sorry.
on that fire code and roads. There is, it's probably been emailed over as we were meeting. I brought with me the draft July 17th of this ordinance that's going to be discussed by the planning commission. And Chris, you were at the Wednesday meeting that we had, and I hope everything's in there that you had asked for changes. And I just will comment to the board, as a township board member of the township council, we've had almost 6 months of discussions, meetings, lawyers, etc. And Wednesday, when I was at that meeting, it seemed like we were in agreement, Greg, on the reasons, and that it was acceptable to and okay with the fire department to make these ordinance changes to the IFC. And tonight, you made a very impassioned plea that you've been bullied, and I don't understand it, because I've been in personal meetings with you, and that was never brought up. We've kind of worked this out to the mutual benefit of both parties. And I just want to let the board know that. I disagree with what Greg had said earlier. All of a sudden, it sounds like this shouldn't be at all. And we've had spent 6 months getting.
I'd gladly comment since I was in that meeting, or I can wait until public comment, whatever you guys prefer, but.
Go ahead,
I'll
Chris.
do it now.
I guess I'd like to comment that many of the statements I preface with, I don't know what Chief Janik approved, just because
totally
I had gotten to talk to
I
him
didn't want
about
to
that.
give.
You know,
I'm glad you
would
said
be
that.
one point, so I didn't get a chance to ask him since he was out of town, and the meeting was dumped on me 2 hours beforehand by Eric.
And it was dumped on me 2 hours the night before.
Right, exactly. So, so there wasn't a lot of time to prep and actually fairly review the ordinance, and we found a few more things after that meeting that were incorrect verbiages and stuff like that would be the first concern. And I started that meeting with, the last I understood from Chief Janik, that him and Steve had agreed to the policy statement that the fire department would write the policy statement that would leave the IFC completely intact, and that we would just allow Steve to do the road part under this new zoning ordinance amendment. And that was how I had last understood it. So I guess I can see Chief's confusion that he didn't hear part of that, that we all believe that we were stopping at the policy statement and we were done with these revisions to the fire code. But yet, it seems like we're not. So, and then third to that, I guess it was clear in that meeting that there was a lot of statements even I made that were twisted within that meeting and given back to me by the township manager, that I don't think he may not have been actively listening through that meeting and through several other meetings and fully taking away what we're talking about in these meetings are not actually included in the next revision of the amendment, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That what the last thing Chief and Steve agreed to was the policy statement, and then now we come back with a whole new ordinance. Then all the stuff we lined out in that meeting, I would be willing to bet that when we do actually get the next draft, which we haven't received yet, that there's just a few things that, you know, and people make mistakes, and, you know, Steve misses stuff, Aaron misses stuff, you know, we all miss stuff. It's not, I'm not trying to fault them for that, but I think it's just, a lot of it is that it's not being heard and notes well taken to be able to communicate back to the attorneys and spend more attorney money to draft another version.
But he said, when we were sitting there, he made the notes of the changes you said.
Right.
He said he was gonna fix it that afternoon and email it to you
And
that
I
day.
had
That
yet
didn't
to
happen.
receive that.
So
That's what I'm saying, is all those statements like that, there's no follow through, I guess is what
It's there now.
it's still not there, I just checked. I still do not have an email from anybody at the township with revised changes, unless Greg is the only one who received it.
We discussed at that meeting, for the benefit of the board, in my understanding of it, having been there, the reasons for the ordinance amendments rather than a policy statement or you writing a policy or letter that accepts certain size roads, et cetera, from IFC requirements and change those turnarounds, et cetera, up to 4, is it, Chris?
5 or more. wasn't
5
it?
or more.
Well, and yeah.
But then tonight I hear we never should have done any of that, that we've been working on with drafts back and forth, back and forth. Now I hear tonight that we shouldn't have it at all, which is like flabbergasting at this point.
And I guess I understood
right
it's,
back to square one.
as Eric said, I understood Steve was gonna send over a revised draft for me and Chief to review before going back to the attorney again
Yes.
and wasting more money
Yes.
on another attorney review, which still has yet to happen, so I'm getting it.
I want to look. I will make sure I look into why you didn't get that right away. Or what
Okay.
happened.
And-
There's got to be an explanation for it.
Well, I hope we haven't taken 17 steps back, because it seems like we were getting close.
And
but
I
that's
want this
unfinished.
board to understand that my name has been brought up repeatedly about those revisions and that I caused those revisions. I have never caused one revision. I want this board to understand that. I have never weighed in on this. It's not my business. I have never caused a revision. Is that not true, Chief Janik? Never, never once. And just because the township said I did that, doesn't mean I did it. I did not do that, and I am not a liar. So,
I guess, if I could just offer some comment here. What we tried to do was meet the township's needs by rewriting and modifying some of the International Fire Code. Two examples were road width and water supplies, which we've been doing for about 12 years anyway. So the code is 20 feet, we were okay with 16 feet with one house. So those things we were doing. We didn't require a water supply for every house, we made it 3. John Phillips, Brad, Jane and I all agreed, Chris agreed to 4. Steve wanted 5, Roy wanted 5, we gave him 5. I drafted all this, right? I drafted all this in the form of an agreement saying, we'll follow this criteria for the township because nobody else is doing it. We'll follow this criteria. And I asked the attorney for a low-cost method of implementing this. Instead of an ordinance revision, it's a fire code, which belongs underneath the auspices of regulation of the fire department. But township wanted it shifted in the private road ordinance, negating the time we spent on the policy statement. That's their right. That's their right. I wouldn't do that. We had agreed to things. When the red line edition came in that Wednesday, there were things omitted. I mean, like Chris said, it was mistakes. How could I agree to it when we're right back to stuff I did 5 months ago? I didn't do it. Their attorney did it. I can tell just by the way it's written. There's not a clear understanding of it. That's why Steve didn't do it, the attorney did. The attorney doesn't know the fire code. You can put it on record. I don't really care. He doesn't know the fire code. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the problems we had. And my understanding was, Eric, you tell him, that I was invited to this meeting, which I was never even contacted last Wednesday. Is that not right?
Right.
You were told I was invited to the meeting.
I was told you were going to be there.
I never was contacted. I was in Petoskey. So that I have a big problem with. Number 2, somebody said I agreed to that. And I tell you in the record, I never agreed to it.
I don't know who the somebody is, but Chris, we never, you were very careful in saying, I can't speak for the chief.
No, he can't.
And he can't.
Right.
We understood that.
Right.
So nobody understood that you were signing
Well,
off.
it just sounds like we're the cause of it going backwards. And, you know, to listen to Aaron Sheridan say, I'm the cause of 11 revisions. No, I know you don't want to hear that.
but I am.
But you're
No,
going
it's
to
not
hear
you.
it, Roy. All due respect, you're going to hear it.
But
You know?
there's another side to it.
Oh, I know there is. There's always 2 sides.
I feel like I'm in an alternate universe. I sat personally with you and negotiated, and we agreed that it would be better to do it. And I said this at the Wednesday meeting,
Okay, well, wait a minute. We decided we were not going to talk about this
Oh,
tonight.
all right.
So,
it's not the cost recovery, it's roads, which is on the agenda here.
rock on then. I mean,
And-
we're talking about exactly what we were
Yeah.
talking
I'm not
about.
gonna-
It's
I'm
just
not
one
gonna-
part of 2 things that are the
We were
issue.
just surprised that the version came in Wednesday with clear omissions. I don't mean typos, omissions. And I have nothing to hide or lose
Right,
here.
and Steve admitted there was all kinds of
Right,
omissions.
so why is that my problem?
I don't know if everybody feels on that line, but I think everybody's done a real good job with what we've got. I would like to see
I have no problem.
I would like to see everybody stay in the positions they're in. I make it simple.
I would rather someone else take the clerk, official clerk position.
Your position.
It's not a big deal, to sign 3 legal documents a year or something. There's somebody else.
Okay, so you're the secretary, you do.
Secretary, rather, please.
Okay, can I hear a nomination for secretary? I guess we should do this one at a time.
Probably should do it one at a time.
So nominations for board chair, please.
Make a nomination for Jane.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Moving on, what else do we need?
Assistant chair, which is Eric.
Yeah,
Yeah, vice chair.
okay, vice chair. I have a motion for vice chair, please.
I'll make a motion for vice chair for Eric.
Second,
Support.
please. All those in favor, or, yeah, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And we need a secretary.
We'll make a motion for Marilyn Starr to be secretary.
I'll support.
Harold, you really don't have to do this. Trust me.
No, you do not have to take one no. Chris
I
Mansell's
think
gonna
I've
say.
gone to City Hall 3 times in a year.
There's not much to it.
To sign a
You
document.
gotta sign truck loans and that's about it.
Yeah, in blood.
Sorry, Marilyn. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes. You should have showed up.
Yeah.
Doesn't she just say so in it?
That's how I got to be secretary,
Yeah.
Marilyn.
Okay,
I came to my
and then,
first meeting. And I was
We also need a vice secretary, and we ran into that one time. And I'll make a motion that Scott continue on as the vice secretary.
I guess I wasn't I?
I'll support that.
Yeah.
Yes, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
The real one.
Okay, you get it, Scott. All right, thank you. We have a letter received. John, this one.
Just want to point out 2 things. There's one other I didn't feel was a big addition to the agenda. The first one is a letter from Representative Mary Whiteford to John Miles for recognition for Firefighter of the Year Award. So we had this framed for John for his home or his office. So I think it's pretty significant. Those of you who know Mary, she's a very good friend of the fire service, and she recognizes talent and dedication, and that's John Miles. Second one is from Joe and Sharon Wyman. This was a cardiac arrest, 5 shots. Nothing to hide because he made it public. It was a save. He walked in here last Wednesday. Really, you have to think about this as a credit to the board. Those of you that are new on the board decided to allow AEDs geographically positioned to every officer. So 2 officers, Michael England, maybe future officer, responded to this cardiac arrest. And the man walked in this building last Wednesday. So it's not only a testimony to the crew's unselfish dedication, but also to the board funding those AEDs.
Is that the one at the school?
No, this was
It's
what we
another
talked about. It was like 3 days before the last board meeting, so it would have been like 35 days ago.
It was like two
From
or
today.
3 days after that one.
Yeah,
It was the same week.
they were in the same week.
We had about 4 cardiac arrests in about 10
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
And early defibrillation is key to survival. And having those AEDs, there's no substitute for it. You can do CPR till day ends, and it's not going to replace AED. Dr. Dave knows what I'm talking about. But this board, there is no fire department in the county that has done this. So you really ought to pat yourselves on the back because you made a difference. That's another life saved. And that's an area in the township where I live too, and you don't know who's going to come when and where. But fortunately, geography being what it is, Brent, Chris, and Mike England all converge there, and it's a save.
So the board gets an assist.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get you a little CPR safe pin.
Public comment? Any public comment?
Back here, yeah. One, I'd like to commend Roy and Eric as township board members. Aaron finally ordered your AED last week, like Wednesday, for the township hall. So after many months of talking about the importance of having AEDs, he was able to, or the board or whoever, approve the funds to do that. So you guys, I think it'll be in tomorrow or something like that here. So we'll get it over there and help installed or whatever needs to happen. So I'd like to commend you guys on that. And then I guess I'd like to, again, voice my frustration with the township and they're spending money on lawyers. Even I can't imagine what it costs for Nick to be here at the fire board meeting today for the 3 minutes of public comment. It just seems like wasteful spending as a taxpayer. And I know Roy agreed with my frustration last month, but yet it continues to happen. So I'm just going to voice it again. So thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got a public comment. It was discussed earlier that the fire department's attorney, Lumen Saugatuck, is also the attorney for the city of Saugatuck, and it's a conflict in which change attorneys. Well, if we're going to change attorneys, better change financial person, because I also work for the city of Saugatuck and answer to Kurt Harrier. And the other issue is we have an audit coming up, and the fire board's auditors and main principal is also the same individual that does the township. So just beware, we start replacing one professional service, there's other, you're going to start a track record, then you're going to have to replace the financial side, and then you need to replace the auditing firms too.
And you also have to, if you're going to accuse a conflict of interest, you have to prove it. There is no proof that there's a conflict of interest. So you just can't say there's a conflict of interest without proving it. The city council went through this several years ago, where they wanted council members not to vote on certain things because they were this or that or something else. There's a set of rules about conflict of interest, and I'm sure Jeff would never, ever break those rules. He's a professional, he knows what he's doing, he has a background in fire code enforcement, and that's very, very hard to find.
Brett, I would suggest, and I was going to ask, that Jane, you put this on as a discussion item on next month's agenda.
I don't do the agenda, but Greg does.
Great. Chief, I would like to see it on there, and so that we can have a board discussion of the pros and cons. Because the township's been through this with changing attorneys because of potential legal things that come up. And we feel pretty strongly that you should have a separate attorney. It's not the same as accounting or auditing. We're mixing apples and oranges.
But we can discuss it next time.
So that's the discussion I think should be had, and this is not the appropriate time.
All right.
So I'd like to have it on the agenda.
It'll be on the agenda.
Board member,
It'll be on.
so that we can have the pros and cons. That's all.
Can I comment on this?
Mhm.
Thank you.
If there's a problem with an attorney, none of you talk to the attorney. Is there a distinct problem? Is there a problem with the rate? I would like to have a letter stating what specifically the conflict is. I look back at the files here and I'd like to know what attorney is going to charge, reduce charges as a client courtesy. No charge for travel time is client courtesy, $125 an hour. Also,
I think the big thing is the potential, and that's what Roy is bringing up, and that's what we should discuss.
I don't think
It's
we
just a
should be
discussion.
discussing it any further.
All right, we
now.
can discuss
Leave
it next board
You
meeting.
know, as an agenda item for the public.
Mike still has.
Is there any other public
Yes,
comment?
Jane. Mike England. I live in the township, and as a taxpayer of the township, I just want the township to get this resolved because this is starting to get old. It really is. I mean, this bickering back and forth, and you know, my friends and everybody that sits on the other side of that, firefighters have died because these codes and people have skimped before in this. And it's like, when is enough blood going to be enough? Granted, it hasn't happened, but it will happen. And it's time that we get this handled.
Okay, any other public? Thank you. fire board comment.
I have a few.
All right,
I support Greg, and he knows that. I've been on this board 11 years, and our fire, I can't talk specifics, but what we've been doing has been working. And I think we need to look at, if someone thinks it's not working, we need to work together to get things done, not bickering back and forth. The other thing is, Jane, with you being elected to the chairman, I just want you to know, I've had people ask me if Jane were playing for the fire department. And I know you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this. But I think there's some decisions that are being made that we could do in a workshop and get all the board involved so your neck isn't on the line all the time. I know you're here a lot. I mean, we used to do a workshop the second Monday or whatever of the month to discuss things like this, so you don't have to make that decision. You got all of us and to do that. I know some things have to be made now, but I still, do I want to sit in another meeting a month? No. But if we have to, I think it's important we do, so it's not all on your shoulders. We want to bear the burden with you.
and I thank you, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I get credit for a lot of decisions that I've made that I haven't made.
Well, you get
So-
both.
So, you know what?
Well, that's
It might
fine.
be really,
I don't want the township to think you're making the decisions when all of us should be making these decisions. So we're all together.
Greg runs the fire
Right.
department.
And with the workshops. you
And
can-
any,
Okay, we can go to workshops,
boards,
that's fine.
boards of, Fortune 500 companies hire a CEO to run the company, and
That's
the
what-
boards stay at arm's length.
Right,
Let them run the company.
right, exactly.
So, my third comment is regarding the bike path. I know it wasn't on here, and we talked about the gates.
Yes, sir.
Is that out of the question, or do we have to go to the township and pay for them ourselves and ask for their
They
permission?
won't allow it because it obstructs it. Matter of fact, I got a kind of a interesting reply from an engineer that it's not our apron, it's not ours, and the bicycle people can go wherever they want, and that the only people that use our drive are the staff members. He doesn't know we're about like a walk-in clinic, and we have people coming in here all
So those
time.
gates are out of the question. Like
They are out of the question.
Madness.
Is that an MDOT decision?
And I said, I will appeal it and I'll do a waiver, and he says, you will lose. And I said, well, I said, people are using this, and I said, we have it on it's all recorded by camera. The bicycle's going through as we stop Blue Star Highway. They're using this bike lane, and it's not even open yet. There's no signs, no traffic safety devices. As we were speaking, he was telling me that nobody's using it. There goes 2 bicycles right through.
What about a light up front?
So it was really very fortunate that I met this guy, Joshua, from MDOT, from the state. He said that he suggested a lighted beacon at each end, north and south, that we would activate when we were deployed, either via the overhead doors or a button, and then the beacons, the flashing lights would go on, stop.
Emergency, yeah.
Right.
What
Because-
about a good old fashioned light in front?
We could, I said,
Like
it's
for
just,
traffic.
I'm not paying for it either. Township's paying for it or somebody else. I'm done paying
People
for
don't
anything
stop
on
their
there.
stuff.
People are gonna get killed, and then what's
Bicycles
the
don't
light
stop.
cost?
But they put the whole responsibility on us as far as we have to work around them. So what did I do? I brought in Michigan State Police, Allegan County Sheriff deputies, and I brought in Saugatuck Douglas Police. Every one of them said, and I could quote them, you need to have traffic safety control measures such as the fixed gates. And MDOT says, nope. So now what I'm trying to do, and they said, well, the department head came from the state, and while we were discussing, it was a prearranged meeting, and they talked to him about that, and he said, well, I think that's within the scope of what the state can pay for. So I said, I sure hope you'll consider that, and they said, can we take power off your building? I said, I'll do everything I can to facilitate that, because it's not gonna consume a lot of power. But you know, you gotta get power at both ends of the building.
Right.
So
Trench it out there.
But that's not my problem.
Yeah.
But we were flat out refused, and honestly, quite honestly, the letter from Landon Johnson was so out of line and so rude, even one of their other engineers said it was completely inappropriate, and I let it go.
Okay, moving on.
Thank you.
You're saying, you know, the bike trail is on, right away of the
Yeah.
highway,
Right.
not,
But they said that they don't have to listen, they don't have to acknowledge and adhere to traffic safety control measures like a stop sign. The Michigan State Police, Alvin County Sheriff Sergeant Wagner, Chief Kent disputed that.
Okay, moving on.
Oops, I just have, my apologies to the board, fire department. I had planned to be here. We were slammed today. Did not expect that, and I had extra people to work, and I had to put them on the phone, so my apologies.
Apologies accepted.
It's vacation time.
Yeah, it's time to work, Carol.
Not
Todd?
for the locals.
Todd?
No comments right now. We have working progress going on here, obviously, and continue on with the forward movement. Everyone keep in mind that, hey, this is the greater Saugatuck Douglas area, and that's who we are, not just one place.
Kathy?
Kind of similar. I'm still trying to learn how it got to this point. It saddens me to hear the conflict. I guess I just say one thing is when you do meet again and you work hard to resolve this, try not to remember what you once said and dig in so bad you can't change. When new things get set, minds can be changed. And I saw that with the bike trail a little. People just dig in and they're afraid of losing face to change, even though new information's been presented. So all I can say is please re-enter it with the most open mind you can and listen. Listen, it sounds like people aren't communicating. There's just stupid little breakdowns happening. That's it.
Thank you. Scott?
Well, things will get worked out. We'll survive.
Okay.
I'm not concerned.
All right. Anybody else? Meeting's adjourned.